Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we talk about a single piece of nerd entertainment that has happened relatively recently, and we look at it in depth, which means spoilers, as all the signage around here says. So we'll look at what's good about it, what's bad, what we liked, what we didn't, what worked, what didn't work, themes, tone, messages, and so on. Tonight's topic is the recent Sony Pictures Animation movie released on Netflix, The Mitchells versus the Machines. So if you have not seen this movie, you should probably, and if you don't like spoilers, you should probably wait until you have seen it. Spoiler for the end of this particular show, you should see it. And then come back and watch this here on YouTube or on Twitch or wherever you happen to see it, Facebook Live, etc. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, a first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter, and a few other places doing a few other things. So first thing, before we get into talking about tonight's entertainment, give you a little bit of a promo. If you have a Twitch account, we'd certainly love you to go to that URL right there, folks, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber, and maybe consider following us. We have a fantastic representation on Facebook Live, amazing on YouTube, but we're really looking to build that following on Twitch Live. And we do stream live on Twitch all of these shows, all three in any given week. You know, our Monday show, our Tuesday Nerd Week Live, and then, of course, this Full Fat Spoiler Chat every Thursday is on all three platforms. So if you have it, love to have you come and follow us there on Twitch. So what is The Mitchells versus the Machines? It is a movie released this past April on Netflix. It was originally apparently supposed to be just a straight up Sony Pictures Animation release in 2020 under the name Connected. Then, of course, COVID hit and the theater shut down. Sony held onto it for a while, then decided that they would sell the distribution rights to Netflix. Eventually, Netflix, like I said, in April of this year, put it out in theaters, and then it actually hit streaming a week later. So the movie is a computer, as you can see from this, sort of a computer animated action comedy, science fiction, sort of robot apocalypse story that is directed by the team of Mike Rianda and Jeff Rowe, both of whom have various roles, but particularly writers under their belt from the series Gravity Falls. So the writing, the writers have deep experience in writing sort of weird, nerdy, sort of science fiction-y fantasy comedy with a lot of heart. The animation, even though that scene doesn't particularly show it, you will see eventually, if you do watch this, that the animation, parts of it are clearly influenced by the fact that the producers of this are Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. Lord and Miller from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, one of the most amazing multimedia computer animation products ever created. And it shows. Their influence in how to do certain things is pretty strong here. The cast, Abby Jacobson is the lead, and I really should remember what her Katie, there we go. It took me a second. And Danny McBride, Maya Rudolph play her parents. Eric Andre plays the head of this company, PAL, P-A-L, that is sort of inadvertently responsible for this whole robot uprising thing. Olivia Colman plays the voice of the PAL assistant. Fred Armisen and Beck Bennett as two robots, John Legend and Chrissy Teigen, as like the perfect couple that are the neighbors to the not nearly so perfect Mitchells. Conan O'Brien in a role where I guarantee you will not recognize his voice at all. Just no way. So the story basically tells about this mildly dysfunctional family living in Michigan. You know, mom and dad, teenage daughter who's about to go off to college, and I'm guessing not quite middle-aged school son. And they're all pretty interesting and weird characters. You know, dad still drives around in a 1993 station wagon, orange station wagon. And when I say mildly dysfunctional, the reason I say that is that, you know, there's definitely tension between the father and daughter, and that's kind of the main tension that needs to get resolved, you know, through this whole thing. In addition to the plot, where of course they have to save the world from a robot apocalypse, but you know, as opposed to extremely dysfunctional, an extremely dysfunctional family usually involves abuse of some sort. And that's not a part of this at all. So I say mildly dysfunctional. You know, it's a dad that doesn't communicate properly with his, you know, in his mind, pretty weird teenage daughter. And, you know, that's the dysfunction. And then the plot basically is, you know, how this robot uprising comes to be and how they get caught up in it and how they ultimately have to try to save the world. So that said, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should really describe about it. That's pretty much it. So we start getting into the things that we like, what worked for it, or what did they shoot for and actually achieve. And right out of the gate, it's hard to say what to pick first of the things that I like, but I'm going to start with the animation. I don't think I picked anything in any of these images that show any of the sort of multimedia stuff. I mean, like, that is just pretty good, solid computer animation early on, you know, when dad, who is very much not a techie, is kind of ticked off that the whole family is, you know, on their devices. You know, just little gags like this where the dog, Katie is constantly tricking her dad into accidentally tongue kissing the dog, which is a pretty good running gag through the entire show. And I'll just to give them credit, the dog, Monchi, is pretty vital to the plot. It's actually pretty cool that they managed to work that in there. I'm trying to think, no, there's not a single scene that I picked, and because part of that is because those multimedia bits go by pretty quickly. Probably they're less frequent than happened in Into the Spider-Verse, but they're also still very creative. Oh, by the way, I completely forgot to say, BO7 De Castro, welcome to the chat. And they say, I already watched Mitchells versus the Machines. It was a great comedy. I'm gonna say, again, spoiling what my opinion is at the end, I agree. Got anybody else in the Facebooks or the Twitters? Nope. All right. So, in general, the animation is it's really solid. It's well done. It's what you can do with computer animation without making it look overly slick. You know, if you want to keep a very cartoony element to it, which, you know, again, you look at the big, you know, googly eyes and so on. It's very cartoony. And then, you know, over that they add some of these occasional additional bits of animation, mostly from Katie's point of view when she's thinking of something, you know, like almost like drawings and notebook stickers kind of appear all around her and so on. So the animation is really solid. It's really smooth. The voice acting is phenomenal. I am hot and cold on Danny McBride, who plays Rick, the dad. Generally, because I think sometimes he is absolutely spot on hilarious. He was one of the best things about Tropic Thunder. He was one of the best things about Pineapple Express. But when allowed to go full on Will Ferrell, I'm gonna play a complete jerk and try to make it funny, you know, he goes too far for me in a lot of cases. This is one of the most heartfelt, emotional performances I've ever heard out of him. It's like a different person. He's really amazing in this. Everybody is fantastic in this. Maya Rudolph was, of course, fantastic no matter what. Beck Bennett and Fred Armisen as the two robots are wonderful. Without at all in any way sounding like Martin and Lewis, any of the great comedy teams, duos you can think of, they really evoke that comedy duo aesthetic very well. Olivia Colman as Pal, the voice of the original, literally it's a smartphone AI assistant, that starts this whole thing, is wonderful. The Abby Jacobson, who does Katie, is fantastic. So everybody is really solid, but they're also given wonderful stuff to do. It is, while exaggerating the kind of oddity and weirdness of the Mitchells, it is one of the best descriptions or writing jobs I've seen of a weird, somewhat dysfunctional family and their family dynamic. All of them, the mom, the dad, even Aaron. I think it's Aaron, right? The young kid, Aaron. Yeah. Oh wow. Played by Michael Rianda. So I'm assuming with that last name, possibly the actual director or co-director and co-writer. So the fantastic script. The story is wonderful. The plot is wonderful. And then the story that drives that plot is wonderful. And particularly the dialogue of the characters as they move through the plot is fantastic. You can absolutely believe every aspect of these people, and particularly Katie. It's kind of tough to portray a weirdly creative teenager without often falling into sort of stereotypes of, he's a weirdly creative teenager. And you don't ever get that sense in Katie's performance or Abby Jacobson's performance as Katie, the writing of Katie as a character. She likes making weird little videos that she puts up on YouTube, which ultimately leads her to going to a cinema college, a arts college in California for film. And the movies are just hilarious. I can just, I'm sitting here picturing the writing room of, these two writers and anybody else they had on the writing staff coming up with these ideas. It's just wildly creative stuff. Super shoestring, no budget whatsoever. I mean, it's a camcorder and then editing software. She uses her dog Monchi as the main character for almost everything. Including her most recent upload, which was Monchi starring in Good Cop, Dog Cop, and it's wonderful. But they also use that as a sort of a plot device to reveal even more of the characterization of the main characters. Because one of the things where they show how the sort of dysfunctional family, Rick the dad is putting a taxidermy duck, a stuffed duck, up on a plaque, up on a wall, in their living room or wherever, and Katie comes out with her laptop, says, "Dad, I want to show you my latest movie," and he just blithely and without malice, but just says, "Oh, I'm really busy. I'll get to it another time." And she's of course crushed. That as we finally see a little bit more and more of this movie that she made, we get a lot more of a sense of how bad the relationship is between the two of them. And it's really well done. I mean, it's a great bit of storytelling reveal to move the character dynamics along and ultimately lead them to, again, it's a spoiler chat, so it's no big, and it's essentially an animated, mostly kids comedy, so no big surprise that resolution is going to happen. But everything about the writing is absolutely fantastic. It's silly. Calling it a science fiction, it has robots and they're trying to take over the world, and they've somehow invented anti-gravity guns and things like that. It's like, okay, yeah, I guess it's science fiction in that sense. It's way more science fantasy, but sure, I'll give it science fiction. As much as I am a hard science fiction nut, I don't care. It was so much fun. Every super ridiculous thing they did, it was just like, oh, okay, all right, that was a lot of fun. I don't care that there's absolutely no way that these hexagonal translucent green boxes that the people get put into before they're attempted to be launched into space to get rid of humanity forever have no bathrooms. And the course of the story takes place over at least 2 days. Just saying. But I don't care, because it's so much fun. It's so inventive. Even it makes absolutely no sense. The robots would just kill everybody. I mean, come on. We know that. As opposed to killing them by shooting them into space. But it gives them the opportunity to do some amazing CG, crazy ass ideas for what the spaceship looks like, how they're assembling it. It's all just wonderful. And I got to say, when you've got really good writing of characters and a really innovative plot and mostly a fantastically creative story, I'm not going to get bogged down in the details of the science fiction. But if you got a crappy story, I'm really going to get bogged down in the details of the science fiction. In this case, it's just like, okay, fine. It's an animated comedy, and it's really funny. So, granted, the guys who produced directed the Lego Movie as well. So, silliness is and deeply heartfelt storytelling is in their blood. And kudos to them for jumping onto this or picking, however it started, this team from Gravity Falls, because they clearly have the Lord and Miller writing and storytelling aesthetic right in their heart. So I absolutely love the story and love the writing, love the performances. The music is really interesting. The background music is Mark Mothersbaugh, so of course it's fantastic. But the diegetic music that's inside, the story itself, is a really interesting, diverse mix. And I'm trying to think of, I'm sure it says somewhere if I looked it up, who's on the soundtrack that does this, seemingly girl group punk song that Katie is listening to early on, before all the big action starts. And it's really wonderful, interesting needle drops throughout this whole thing. What else can I say that I really liked about it? That's pretty much it. It's edited well. The pacing is solid. It doesn't drag at all. There are times in the story where it seems like, when they seem to have reached a point and then there's a setback and then they reach another point and there's another setback and you can, okay, I get it. If you have another setback, it's clear that you're basically just stretching. But they don't. Those rise and falls all the way to the rise of the actual ending and the good conclusion makes sense. So So yeah, so that's pretty much what I like about it. It's really outstanding. And again, all all kudos to Danny McBride for that fantastic performance as the dad, Rick. Um, didn't know it was in him. Oh, one other thing is fantastic. Um, they never mentioned this whatsoever uh, until they get to the very end, and it's just casually mentioned that, is Katie going to bring this girl that she met in college, or she met actually before college, that that was also going to the college. It's sort of like a freshman social media mixer thing. Um, Bring her back for the holiday dinner. I can't remember which holiday it is. Um, and it's like, oh, all right, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I'm looking at it. Katie's a lesbian. Okay, and that's it. That it's never brought up. Her sexuality isn't even addressed hardly at all. I mean, sure, you can take some of the things she said about how this girl Jada is cool as indicating that she might be, attracted to her, but unless you're stretching, I mean, it's literally, it's like, oh, that's a cool person I want to meet. And then at the end, they just drop, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, she's gay. Like, okay, all right, cool. And so again, kudos to them to making that just such a not plot element whatsoever, and just sort of thrown in at the end to kind of round out Katie's character. And a believable thing that would happen when a parent is talking to a child that has, just gone off to college and left the home for the first time. Um, you know, how's it going with this significant other that you're working on, and are they going to be coming back for a holiday? Makes absolute sense from a standard, typical family storytelling point of view. Things that I didn't like. So this is when we get to the point of what didn't I like about it, what didn't work, what did they shoot for and didn't achieve. This is really tough. There's very little about this that I didn't like. Like I said, there were times when things were really silly that didn't sort of make any logical sense. And I would think about it for a second and then go, this is such a fun cartoon. Who cares? It's a cartoon. Oh, geez, I'm trying to look through. I can't think of anything about this. The performances are all really solid. The animation, there's almost nothing about this that I would say that I didn't like. Gosh, I'm really trying to think. There's got to be something that I was not particularly happy with. And no, I just, it's really impressive, really outstanding. Which is too bad, because that means it's a really short segment and there's not much I can say about anything else. If it wasn't COVID, I kind of wish I'd seen it in the theater. But even then, it's not Dune. It doesn't need Victorious Plays. Welcome to the show. And whatever it is that you thought was cool, I'm sure I agree with you. Again, we're spoiler, The Mitchells versus the Machines. It came out in April, very end of April on Netflix. So, if you were interested, chances are you've already seen it. But just as a warning, we are talking about it, and there are spoilers. So what does it mean? What does it all mean? What's the tone? What's the themes? What's the message out of here? So the tone is fun. It's really pretty light. I don't know that I would recommend this for younger kids. It is rated PG, not G. And some of the violence could be pretty scary for kids. For the younger kids. But in general, the tone is very fun action. lots of in situation jokes that work really well. Just it's it's a funny movie, and it has a ton of heart. The other theme, the other tone, is that sense of heart. It is really a heartwarming film. Um, do they tug at your heartstrings with, I wouldn't say nothing rings false in here, because it's part of the basic plot of the story is that there is this conflict between the dad and the daughter, or not conflict, but lack of connection. Um, but they lean on that, of course, to ultimately have it even more heartwarming at the end. But there are heartwarming moments through this whole thing. And it's one of there's a point in the interaction between Katie and her younger brother Aaron that is so big sibling, little sibling, playful, teasing. It's so true to a family dynamic, and again, so heartwarming. It's just wonderful. A theme. I don't know if there's an overriding theme to this. Well, yeah. So the theme is about change, growth, and acceptance. Ultimately, it is a story about coming to know people and accepting them. And particularly, that's the theme of Rick the dad and Katie the daughter's relationship. Everybody accepts the mom. Everybody accepts Aaron, the kid, and his obsession with dinosaurs. But it's the relationship between Rick and Katie that ultimately is the heart of this movie, and that theme of knowing something about somebody, really understanding what they're about and then accepting them as they are, is the overriding theme of this. And so that leans into gets to the message. So there's one big message, and it's really, this one is just slapped in your face, hammered home multiple times. It is that letting capitalism and technology particularly run your lives is a bad idea. It's not necessarily an anti-technology story, because Katie's life revolves around technology, particularly YouTube. She makes movies and puts them up on YouTube, and that is who she is. That defines what she's doing in college, and it sort of helps build up this wall between her and her dad. But the excessive use, the misuse, and most importantly, the excessive trust put into technology companies and the technology they produce is definitely a bad thing in the eyes of this movie. And again, they just beat you over the head with a hammer on that point. The other message is, of course, that that family is really important. That family, however you define it, in this case it does happen to be a nuclear family, needs to be understood. And family, if you decide that these people are your family, then you should do what you can to understand where they're coming from and accept who they are. If they are a kind of person that is not acceptable, then they probably shouldn't be your family. And you get the sense that that is where Katie is in her head at the beginning of this movie. She makes it pretty clear that she's really keen on going to college and probably not talking to the family much after that. And so it's really wonderful to see that grow and change and so on throughout the course of the movie. So those are definitely the two main messages coming out of this. Family is important, and understanding the people that you consider family and accepting them is vital. in your own happiness and theirs, and blind trust in overuse and reliance on technology, particularly corporate technology, corporate backed technology, is a bad thing, and will not lead to your happiness. But even then, the two robots played by Fred Armisen and Beck Bennett, they ultimately wind up accepting the humans is the right word. Their programming changes because of literally getting their heads bashed. But they do wind up becoming part of this, larger family. And so even the people you consider your enemies, you should at least think about trying to understand them and accept them. If they, in the case of this, somehow change their mind that you are something that should be, wiped out from the face of the earth, and become somebody who thinks that, okay, you're actually pretty cool. And that's a really interesting way of them getting around the idea. It's like, no, you should, love your enemy. They say, no, if your enemy wants you to die, they're your enemy. And you are under no obligation to love somebody who wants you off the planet. And that is very timely right now with, the growing name your phobia, racism, bigotry, etc., that is happening all over the world, unfortunately, but certainly right here in the United States where Nerd Caliber is based. And that's a great message that says, hey, if people can change their mind and decide that you're worth getting to know and understand and ultimately care for, then you should try to understand them and care for them back. If they don't, you're under no obligation to. And thank you, filmmakers, for making that point so bluntly and clearly with these two robots. And that's it, I think, for theme, tone, and message. Would I recommend this? 100%. It's fun. It moves along quickly. It's got fantastic writing. It's got fantastic voice acting. Really creative animation. It's probably on the very short list for the upcoming Academy Awards for Best Animated Feature. And it deserves it. And so, kudos for Netflix for putting it in theaters so that it could do that. And out of a 10, this is at least an 8. I would give this a solid 8. I'm trying to think if there's any reason why. You know what? I'm going to go up to a 9. I can't think of any reason, since I couldn't think of anything I disliked about it, any reason not to at least go to a 9. 10s are reserved for genius works. So that's it, folks. That is the Full Fat Spoiler Chat look at The Mitchells versus the Machines. Before I sign off, let me tell you, upcoming, so this Monday is No Nerd Caliber. We will be talking about our favorite main characters out of any sort of fantasy work, literature, movies, anime, whatever. And then Tuesday is, of course, Nerd Week Live, our nerd news show. The reason we're doing a fantasy work is Full Fat Spoiler Chat next week is going to be the show that drops tomorrow, The Witcher Season 2. So you got a whole week, well, a little less than a week, to watch all of the episodes of The Witcher Season 2 between tomorrow and next Thursday. And know I'm going to be watching it. In fact, I'll binge the whole thing this weekend. And we'll see you at one of those upcoming shows. Before we sign off, we're going to give you another promo here. If you get a chance to go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/nerdcaliber, that would be great. If while you are there, you decide that you want to become a patron, you can choose from the just 3 tiers that we have. The lowest one is $2. And you'll know that money is going to help us go to more cons so we can get more content for our channels here, for our Twitch, for our YouTube, for our Facebook, for more content for our website, nerdcaliber.com, more photo galleries and so on. Don't spoil Spider-Man No Way Home. Please don't, for anybody. Our spoiler-free review is up on the site, nerdcaliber.com, so feel free to check it out. Absolutely no spoilers aside from what's in the trailers, and everybody knows, is characters that are in there. And only those characters that are actually confirmed in the trailers. If there happen to be any other characters that do show up in this movie, I haven't seen it yet, they are not mentioned in this spoiler-free review. So check it out, folks. And thank you for joining me in the chat. Thank you for joining me in general and watching this show, this Full Fat Spoiler Chat. We will see you at an upcoming show. Please stay safe. Yes, the Omicron variant seems to be less dangerous when people get it, but more people get it. And that still puts a lot of people in the hospital. Hospital beds, ICUs are getting really, really short again. New York is putting a full mask mandate indoors again. Wear your mask. Don't get this thing. So please stay safe, folks. We'll see you at another show. Good night